Serious. Have you ever known someone who wholeheartedly believed that they were Wolfkin, a vampire, an elf, had special powers, and couldn't handle the reality that they weren't when confronted? What happened to them?
My best friend in high school and my first 2 years of college genuinely believed that she could not only speak to forestry, but that she was a wingless fairy. She would oftentimes, when we went walking her dogs, lean to trees and translate for me what the rustling of nature spoke of. She also would scribble in her books what she called new alchemy, violently scribbled circles and Vorg shapes she believed held magical and fey magic through her own powers. We had a falling out after a few years, after she moved to the other side of the country to be with her grandmother. We started talking about a few months ago and I found out she had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. She is currently on 2 types of medication and she told me her walks are depressingly quiet now.
And that's the saddest I'm gonna be today. Thanks Reddit.
Just remember that the hallucinations are only one part. Sure, they can be good and losing them can be sad, but it's better to prevent everything else schizo does to you.
Not exactly the same as otherkin, but very much in the vein of the question in terms of total reality denial. I know someone who totally, wholeheartedly, believes that they are a Jedi Master. Our families go way back, so I happen to know other kids were merciless to him all through childhood. He's always had problems, though. Kind of one of those people you can feel aren't quite right but not exactly why. He decided he was a Jedi Master one day. Just, like, out of the blue. Credit where credit is due, he went all the way with it. Became a minor nerd celebrity for a while. At first when people challenged the Jedi thing, why don't you have powers then, he'd say, Jedi is a mindset not a power, or sometimes, you don't know the powers I may have, and try to play it off like a joke, but the dude was 100% serious. If you pushed he would outright melt down with tears and screaming. Apparently his parents financially supported him pretty much entirely, until he, and this part confuses the crap out of me, got married and had a kid while still insisting on the Jedi thing. After that the wife supported him. Eventually he got tired of that and left his family to take off with a teenager he met at a convention. That's when we cut ties with him. You can be a Jedi all you want, but cutting and leaving your kid is some Sith Lord shit. Edit, thanks for the gold and silver, folks. Seeing the comments, I should clarify he was mid-20s when he went Jedi. Also, dang, there are way more Jedis out there than I thought. P.S. I avoided identifying info in my post. I'm not providing it because his ex-wife and kid are good people who deserve to move on. If you think you know this guy, I'm sorry that I can't confirm it, and B, that you might know this guy.
If the kind ends up a Star Wars fan, there might be a really weird I am your father moment.
God forbid the child prefers Star Trek.
My cousin. She 100% believed she was a werewolf. She was finally diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar years ago. She's doing a lot better now.
There's a theory that some reports of werewolves and monsters are because people were unable to comprehend the illness they had. They would have a sense of self and an awareness that something was wrong, but being unable to diagnose themselves would concoct a monster as being ill. It would make sense finally why they were changing so. Glad she's better.
I'm gonna throw out this comment in the hope that some random Reddit expert can chime in and elucidate my vague recollection. I've heard a theory that, when forced into cannibalism due to starvation or whatever, some tribes, individuals simply couldn't cope, psychologically, with what they had done. So they developed myths about monsters who possessed humans and drove them to cannibalism. They would rather conclude that they were possessed, than to accept what they had done. Went to school with a girl who acted like a dog. Barked, panted, pawed at people. In class she would reply normally but then bark at the end. This went on for 3 years. Decided to look her up on FB and she has a good job and seems normal. Teenagers are fucking weird.
Was it an actual bark sound or was she like, Thomas Jefferson was the 3rd president? Oh, and woof. Yes, unfortunately. He claimed to have an invisible tail and had a dream in which a great mother wolf revealed to him that he had the soul of a wolf. So he did what any sane person would do and started buying furs to masturbate onto. He showed me eBay links via Facebook and explained that it's one of the only 2 ways that he can get off, as well as started fucking dogs, or so he claimed. Last I heard, he's in Alaska working with sled dogs all the while he's engaged to a woman who he refuses to have sex with because human sex is disgusting to him. I need a drink just fucking writing that.
Removed.
Removed.
Deleted.
Holy shit. That took a turn.
Right, reading this one I'm like, oh well, this one seems pretty harmly, oh my god.
Unfortunately, yes. I met a girl at a very young age while going to church. Her family was deeply religious, but in a messed up way. So we dated off and on, and after high school hit it off pretty strong. She honestly believed she was a fairy. She would get faced with the reality of not being a fairy and completely shut down, sometimes even attempting suicide. Found out later she has really bad schizophrenia and had to get away from her after she discovered drugs, and I couldn't help her anymore.
That's really sad.
I hope you didn't come here for happy stories, lol. People who have happy stories don't often genuinely believe these sorts of things.
I once dated a girl who would wear a bell around her neck and act like a cat. Over time her self-esteem improved and she just sort of grew out of it without me saying anything or pressuring her. One day the bell was just a ribbon, and then she stopped wearing the ribbon. At least in the case of high schoolers who act like this, I would say in 90% of people it really is just a phase in a growing kid's search for identity and community. These days when the internet is always there for you, there are infinite communities for people of all sorts. When you're an angsty teen who doesn't know who they are yet, it's easy to latch onto an accepting community and identify with them because they accept you, even if that's not really who you are. I mean, that's how I got sucked into the friend group I had in high school, and it's why I wasted so much time on Gaia Online back in the day.
Gaia Online. Wow, I also wasted a massive amount of time on that site. I forgot about that until now.
Removed.
I met a guy who was supposedly pretty close to the level in Scientology where you're supposed to develop powers like telepathy and stuff. Not sure what became of him. You'd think that once people reached this level and didn't have powers they'd quit, but brainwashing.
Removed.
Removed.
Yeah, they had really severe childhood abuse, trauma to contend with, and coped with it by believing they were psychic. We met in like junior high when they still believed this. Eventually, they realized that they weren't entirely wrong, just a little bit misdirected. They're a deeply empathic person who, thanks to their abuse history, is very good at reading facial expressions, body language, etc. They're actually a really wonderful person, and ended up becoming a social worker and volunteer at a domestic violence shelter, where all of the qualities that made them a good psychic make them great at helping others who are going through a difficult time.
I hope this gets pushed to the top. A lot of kids like this really do come from traumatic upbringings that aren't always super obvious. Pairing a tumultuous household and bullying at school can be extremely difficult to cope with, and a lot of kids find comfort in identifying with fantasy characters or species or who are also traumatized. Think of a werewolf who has to hide from the public because she is a danger, or fairies who are the last of their kind, etc. This story is so wonderful, though. There are a lot of ways that people can learn to cope with and then utilize their past to benefit the world in some way. Unfortunately, those things usually take time, healing, and often therapy as well. If you still talk to this person, please let them know that this internet stranger is extremely proud.
Abused kids learn to read body language really, really well.
Know a guy that was a wolfkin back in high school. Imagine this goth dude, that straps a tail to his belt and occasionally wears these dumb hairbands with ears. It's obvious that most kids were bullying him, because every time someone would try to defend or befriend him, he'd literally ignore you, and when you asked him why he doesn't want any friends, he'd tell you that he's a lone wolf and also a story how his pack left him. Which was honestly kinda hilarious. In the last year, however, he started going to school looking actually normal. He still didn't talk to anyone, didn't even see him talking to the teachers this time, only knew he was going to the school therapist pretty much on daily basis. Haven't seen him since we graduated until like a year ago, when I saw someone that looked remotely like him hanging out near my campus, and since I always like to catch up with some of my classmates from high school, I thought I could ask him how his life is going. He's a completely different person now, a bubbly outgoing guy, that will spill literally anything about himself without you even asking. It's honestly great, but also kinda scary. Later he told me that it was his dad that made him change, apparently threw everything he liked out, because he was done with him being a wolfkin. He doesn't seem to mind anymore, though. If anything, when we meet, we often joke about our high school horrors, my obnoxious makeup and his weird fursona.
That straps a tail to his belt. Of the ways to attach a tail, that's probably one of the better options.
Finger mouth pop sound. Removed.
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 Buckle the fuck up, everyone. Because I was that kid in middle school. I wholeheartedly believed I was a forest elf. I don't even really remember how it started, but I always loved fantasy novels growing up, especially ones about mythical creatures and nymphs and fairies, all that shit. In middle school, I wore a lot of earthy colors, always had flowers in my hair, joined the archery club, which I was not good at, mind you, I wore elf ears to school, and I mostly walked around barefoot, not a school, obviously. I thought I would communicate with forest animals and navigate myself using only the trees and any water source. Needless to say, I was definitely picked on a lot. I'm 26 now and an IT consultant, married to a damn great guy, and have a baby girl on the way. I never picked up archery again, I promise. **edit***. I'm dying at some of these comments, thank you guys for your humor. And for the silver. Definitely thinking about actually trying archery seriously, but with a baby on the way, doesn't seem super possible right now. Maybe I'll raise a family of elves and I'll make a hobby of it with my husband when my daughter's old enough, smiley face. **edit 2, **AAAAND There's the gold, guess I'm going back to archery, fellas.
Was it something you just grew out of, or was there a sudden realization that it might not actually be true?
I just kinda grew out of it upon entering high school. The middle school I went to was only 7th and 8th grade, so luckily, the phase only lasted maybe 3 years tops if even. My former friend Mark, who ran around at night naked thinking he was a werewolf. He stopped when he was shot in the ass by a paranoid farmer. Small town thought Mark had too much time and energy, and so they had him join the football team. I don't think he runs around naked anymore, but he works as a vet and helps raise wolves.
Who knew getting shot was a wake-up call?
I also have a cousin who got shot in the ass with a BB gun. He's now a retired Navy and is teaching guns and gun safety.
Wow, I'm surprised I can actually answer this one. In high school I became friends with a girl I met through theater. This was during the Undertale craze. She got me into the game and eventually confided in me that she was kin with Sans, the skeleton from the game. I decided to go ahead and go with it because I really liked her and I didn't really have many close friends at the time. I asked her what made her believe she was Sans, and she explained that since there's an infinite number of universes with infinite different timelines, there's probably a timeline somewhere in which she really is Sans. I think she also identified a lot with his whole "I'm funny and outgoing on the outside but I'm actually really depressed" thing. In all honesty, she had a lot of mental health issues and it was a form of escapism for her. She kept it to herself and never talked about it at school, but I would listen to her when she needed it and I would call her Sans after school because it made her happy. I felt bad because she really needed someone to understand her, and it felt like one small thing I could do to make her feel better. She's doing much better now. We kind of fell out of contact, but she's got a good job and I think she's moved on from the kin thing. It's what got her through high school in one piece, so I don't regret indulging her at all. I know it's easy to make fun of teenagers on Tumblr who say they're an angel or a god or a character from a video game, but please don't antagonize them. 99 times out of 100 it comes from a lack of attention, self-esteem or mental health issues, or just a really strong desire to fit in with a community.
You are such a kind and empathic person. Bless you, for serious. Understanding how to be that person for her at such a young age is a very lovely thing and I am so impressed and glad you were there for her and LT. 3.
Someone I used to be friends with identified as a lynx. I was weirded out but she was my friend so I dealt with it. Soon she started to say I was sitting on her tail and she was fully convinced she turned into a cat at night. Last I heard of her she was drawing furry porn for $100 a piece. Edit, a lot of people are talking about how short lynx tails are. I know, this person was just really delusional. I was sitting a whole desk away from her when she made the accusation. A couple other things she did was claim she was sorry cause she accidentally clawed me with her claws. She had only put her hand on my shoulder. She also complained that the teacher was hurting her ears because she was talking and that affected her cat hearing. Another time she tried to go a week without glasses to prove her eyes were becoming more like a cat's. She didn't last an hour. Final thing, she attempted to start a furry, Therian club. Her campaign was along the lines of, join our cult to unleash your inner animal. Yes, she used the word cult.
Must be some good friggin' art for $100.
As a furry artist, I'm shocked at how much some more amazing artists make. I've seen YCH's your character here with a buyout of $5,000 for a slot. It's absolutely nuts.
Knew a guy that swore that he was a reincarnated Kitsune spirit. He and I got into an argument one day and he swore that he would destroy my life, because Kitsunes never let go of grudges. Mythologically, Kitsunes were described as being especially capricious. He ended up telling a bunch of lies about me to everyone he could, gaslit another friend into cutting off contact with me, and occasionally I'll run into someone online that fell for one of the many stories he made up about me. An amp, #X200B. Edit, seems capricious is a word that fewer people know than I thought. In this case, another word might be carefree. I was trying to say that he had gotten the personality trait completely wrong.
Sounds like he did what he said he'd do. Which doesn't make him a fox spirit, it makes him a creepy, vindictive asshole.
Which is exactly what a Kitsune is. Checkmate, unbelievers.
People who haven't